We just heard about the man with the 2 sons, one of whom told his father he would work as his father had requested and then did not. The other, having said no to his father, and then changed his mind and did his father's bidding. What changed that son's mind? Was it a sense of shame? Was it a sense of guilt? I suspect it was the latter, his sense of guilt. All of us have regrets, memories of unkind or hurtful or downright evil things we've done. All of us have feelings of guilt. And if these feelings of guilt are used properly, they are meant to lead us to God. We'd all like the chance to do certain things over again, to make things different, to make right the wrong things that we have done. There was a Persian writer named Omar Khayyam who once wrote, "The moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on. Nor all your piety nor wit can lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all your tears wash out one word of it." What then do we do with our awareness of guilt? The parable of Jesus just heard gives us a sense of direction. Guilt can, after all, be a good thing. It can move us in a constructive direction. It can bring us back home to God, who wants to welcome us. Not everyone agrees with that proposition. There are those in the world around us who maintain that guilt is a device used by preachers, and now you might be looking at me, to manipulate and control you. I hope you don't feel like that. Maybe to even get money out of you, to hold you in fear and threaten you with hell. If I'm doing that, please call me aside after Mass. There are still others who say that there's no such thing as sin. St. John Paul II talks about the loss of the sense of sin in our society today. Some people talk about sin as if it's just a sickness. They say it's psychologically pathological to even recall sin and guilt. Others still wallow in guilt and self-pity, using it as an excuse for drinking too much, or using drugs, or other sorts of compensatory behaviors to deaden a sense of guilt. The truth is that guilt, remorse, and regret can be a very powerful and potentially useful emotion. They can move us away from wasting our gifts, abusing other people, along with powerfully motivating us to make our lives and the lives of those around us much more happy and fulfilled. Responsibility, the ability to respond, is directly related to guilt. While we all have a sense of guilt and regret over things that we might have done, some of us go one step further and begin to examine what we have not done. And sometimes the things we haven't done are much more serious than the things that we have done, if we listen carefully to Jesus in the Gospel. Whatever you have not done for the least of my brothers and sisters, you did not do for me, like feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, visiting those who are sick. There are moments of kindness, tenderness, and compassion that I have not shared with people who needed those things from me. I have not been as courageous as I could have been. I have shunned valor, missed opportunities to lead, passed by moments of truth, avoided conflicts that would have changed people for the better, and not done what God had given me the opportunity to do. I have been the older son, not the younger one, depicted in that famous other parable of Jesus, namely the parable of the prodigal son. Moreover, some of us have blamed others. Actually, maybe that goes back right to the beginning. Adam blamed Eve for giving him the apple. So we like to blame others and use the bad example of others as an excuse for my own bad behavior. I have appealed to the empty phrase, everybody's doing it, and even decreed certain things not to be sinful, things that God has clearly told us are truly sinful. One of the best definitions of insanity I've ever heard goes like this: to keep on doing the same things in the same way while expecting a different result each time. Truly, that is a crazy way to live and to act. Yet I've done it many times. The only sensible thing to do with our regrets, our remorse, and our guilt is to change the way that we act. That's the simple message of Jesus' parable today. It is insanity to declare the reality of sin to be something else. To do that is to be out of touch with reality. It is equally insane to regret what we've done or have not done, and yet keep on doing what we're doing or not doing. The only sane and sensible thing to do with our regrets, our remorse, and our guilt is to face what we've done or not done, and then embark on a positive course of action to make active, decisive, and positive changes in the way we behave. Saint Teresa of Avila said, "You must act decisively." Because of his sense of guilt, the second son in today's parable faced reality and then went out to accomplish his father's task. He experienced guilt and then he took action. Regret was something he felt deep down within his heart and in his soul. And went is something he did with the soles of his feet, and he actually went and worked. You and I are loved sinners. Perhaps we are not saints yet, but that's definitely the reason why God created you, to be a saint. Nor are we condemned to hell. We are being redeemed sinners, those beloved by God, for whom he sent his only begotten Son, not to condemn but to save. It's only when we admit to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs that we can begin to get in touch with reality and move out of the insanity of our denial. Once freed from denial, we can live and move and have our being in the freedom of the children of God. And that freedom is precisely the freedom to do what is right, what is decent, and what is good. To do little things with great love. Doing what is right, decent, and good is the only sanity that gives us the freedom for which our hearts hunger and our souls thirst, and fills us with the food and nourishment and strength that we need for that freedom. Jesus is about to come down to earth once again, right here on this altar, to give you and to give me the bread of life. That which can make us healthy and whole, that which can bring us sanity and the power we need to accomplish His work here on earth as it is in heaven. The simplest interpretation of the teachings of Jesus speaks to my heart, telling me that through God's forgiveness, in His eyes, I am no longer a sinner. In the depths of my conscience, I am no longer guilty. That is what we all want. And Jesus tells us that is true. God Himself is the good, the highest good, all good. He is infinitely free, a freedom beyond anything we can conceive. He is utterly free, free of all ties, far beyond what we can conceive as good. God lives in the freedom of love, and as such can proclaim to you and to me, your sin no longer exists. But I would never hear those words unless I repented and admitted my guilt. This is the great freedom that we can experience when we receive the sacrament of reconciliation.